What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Manin's Minute. And let's say someone comes to 3 different occult practitioners with exactly the same problem. They're sick, they're hurting, or maybe they're recovering from something and they want some spiritual help along with whatever medical treatment they're, already receiving. So they visit a witch, a shaman, and a ceremonial magician and ask each of them to perform a healing working. Now, here's where things get pretty interesting because all 3 practitioners may believe magic or spiritual work can help this person. All 3 might absolutely want the same result, but the way each one understands the problem, the powers they call upon, and what they actually do about it can look completely different. These are very broad categories. There's no single witchcraft, no single form of shamanism, and certainly no one ceremonial magic system. A Gardnerian witch, a traditional folk witch, and a modern eclectic witch may approach healing very differently from one another. Shamanic traditions themselves differ tremendously between cultures, and the word shaman is honestly thrown around a little too freely these days. Ceremonial magicians can come from Golden Dawn traditions, Thelema, grimoire traditions, and a whole mess of other systems. So we're looking at 3 general approaches here, not issuing everybody their official occult employee handbook. Let's start with the witch. Generally speaking, the witch tends to approach healing in a very practical and direct magical manner. Something is wrong, so the working is designed to influence that condition toward improvement. Depending upon the witch, that could involve herbs, candles, oils, stones, charms, poppets, petitions, sympathetic magic, deity work, energy raising, or some combination of all of these things. Historically, magical healing and the use of charms, herbs, and sympathetic practices have been tied together in folk magical traditions for centuries. So imagine the person has recently gone through surgery and wants magical assistance during recovery. Obviously, the witch isn't replacing the surgeon, throwing away the antibiotic, and saying, don't worry, Susan, I've got rosemary. That's not healing magic. That's how Susan ends up back in the emergency room wondering what the hell happened. Instead, the witch might create a working focused upon strengthening the person, encouraging recovery, and removing whatever is believed to be spiritually obstructing the healing process. Perhaps a candle is just for healing. Maybe a poppet represents the individual. Herbs or other materials associated with health and restoration might be incorporated. Energy could be raised and directed toward that person with a very specific intention. There is usually a strong element of correspondence involved here. This plant represents healing, this color represents health, this object represents the person. The witch gathers those relationships together, raises energy through whatever method their particular practice uses, and directs that energy toward the desired outcome. Pretty straightforward. Something needs changing, and the witch performs magic intended to help change it. So a particular scenario might look exactly like this. A witch might begin by creating a poppet to represent the person being healed, making it from cloth and stuffing it with healing herbs such as rosemary, lavender, or chamomile, along with a personal tag lock from the individual. Perhaps a strand of hair, a fingernail, clipping, a small piece of worn fabric, or even their written name and birth date if that's all that's available. The poppet is then formally named as the person so that within the working it becomes their magical stand-in. Beside it, the witch places a white or green pillar candle, for instance, and either carves the person's name into the wax or attaches additional tag locks to the candle itself, perhaps by securing a small written petition beneath it or incorporating a tiny piece of personal material into the dressing around the base. The candle can then be anointed with a healing oil, working from the outside toward the center to draw health and strength into the person, while the poppet is held between the hands and charged with the same intention. Once everything is prepared, the witch raises energy through chanting, visualization, breath, movement, prayer, or whatever method belongs to their practice, and sees the person becoming stronger, healthier, and restored rather than simply imagining the illness disappearing into some vague nowhere. That energy is directed first into the poppet and then into the pillar candle, with the flame acting as a steady source of continuing healing power as it burns. The witch might place the poppet beside the candle for several days, repeating the charging or speaking the healing intention over it each time the candle's lit, and when the working is complete, the poppet can be kept somewhere protected until the person has fully recovered or ritually dismantled once its purpose has been fulfilled. The shamanic healer can look at the same situation from a very different angle. Within many traditions described as shamanic, illness isn't necessarily viewed only as something happening inside the physical body. There may also be a spiritual cause or spiritual component involved. The problem might be understood through relationships with spirits, disruptions of spiritual balance, harmful spiritual influences, or concepts sometimes described as the loss or displacement of some parts of the person's spiritual vitality. Again, exactly how this is understood depends heavily upon the culture and the tradition involved. Because of that, the shamanic healer may not begin by asking, what spell should I cast? The first concern might instead be, what is actually happening here? Through drumming, chanting, trance, prayer, spirit communication, or another traditional method, the practitioner may enter an altered state of consciousness and seek information from the spirit world. Healing can involve interaction with helping spirits, ancestors, or other spiritual beings, depending upon the tradition. In other words, the shamanic practitioner may journey toward the cause of the spiritual problem rather than immediately performing magic against the symptoms. So using our same recovering patient, perhaps the healer determines that what needs attention is not simply physical recovery, but the person's spiritual strength after the ordeal. The work might involve restoration, cleansing, removing an unwanted spiritual influence, calling upon helping spirits, or restoring harmony between that person and their spiritual environment. Notice the difference? The witch may be primarily directing magic toward the condition. The shamanic practitioner may be entering into relationship with a spiritual reality surrounding the condition. So a scenario for a shaman would be something like this. A shamanic healer might begin by preparing the space with smoke, prayer, drumming, rattling, or another traditional method used to shift awareness and establish contact with the spirit world. The person receiving the healing may sit or lie nearby while the practitioner enters a trance state and calls upon helping spirits, ancestors, or other spiritual allies recognized within the particular tradition. Rather than immediately trying to send healing energy, the healer may first seek the spiritual cause of the problem, asking whether there is an intrusive influence, a loss of vitality, an imbalance, or some other disturbance surrounding the person. Once the cause is understood, the practitioner might remove or extract the unwanted influence through breath, sweeping motions, rattling, chanting, or symbolic pulling. Then carry or send that influence away rather than simply leaving it hanging around the room like some unwanted spiritual house guest. If the problem is understood as a loss of strength or spiritual essence, the healer may journey in trance to recover what is missing and symbolically return it to the person by blowing that restored vitality into the chest, the crown, or hands. The working may then be completed by calling in protection and balance around the individual, thanking the helping spirits, grounding the person back into ordinary awareness, and offering simple instructions for rest, cleansing, prayer, or continued spiritual care afterwards. Then our poor recovering person, who apparently has enough free time to visit every occultist in town, arrives at the ceremonial magician. And here the atmosphere can change again. Ceremonial magic tends to place much greater emphasis upon structure, spiritual hierarchy, symbolism, and precise correspondences. Particularly within hermetic systems such as the Golden Dawn, planets and elements, divine names, archangels, colors, symbols, and positions upon the Kabbalistic tree of life can all form interconnected systems of meaning used during ritual. Rather than simply selecting a white or light blue candle because these colors represent healing and getting to work, the ceremonial magician may construct the operation around a particular spiritual force believed appropriate to healing. For instance, Bur, one of the 72 demons listed on the Lesser Key of Solomon. Depending upon the magical system, this might involve solar symbolism, particular divine names, angelic forces, planetary correspondences, talismans, specific incense, ritual gestures, and formal invocation. The magician may begin by cleansing and preparing the ritual space. There may be banishing, purification, and the establishment of a properly ordered magical environment before the healing operation even begins. Rituals within Golden Dawn influenced ceremonial magic, for example, uses gestures, visualization, divine names, elemental symbolism, and archangelic imagery to establish an organized ritual space. Then the appropriate force is invoked. And this is really where ceremonial magic separates itself from the other two examples. The magician's often attempting to bring the working into alignment with a much larger symbolic structure. The healing isn't simply, I want so-and-so to feel better. The magician may be thinking in terms of what divine, planetary, angelic, or elemental current represents harmony, vitality, and restoration, and then constructing the ceremony so that everything points toward that current. It can become very exact. Right symbol, right name, right incense, right color, right invocation, right planetary association. So let's look at a scenario that a magician would go through. through. A ceremonial magician might begin by ritually cleansing themselves in the working space, then establish a protected circle through prayer, divine names, banishing, incense, and whatever formal procedures belong to their particular magical system. If working from the Ars Goetia or Goetia, however you want to pronounce it, the magician could choose Bur, the 10th spirit, because the text specifically attributes to him knowledge of herbs and plants and the ability to heal illnesses. The magician would prepare Bur's seal or sigil along with a written petition identifying the person who needs healing and stating the desired result, and place these upon the altar with appropriate candles, incense, and perhaps herbs connected with healing. Rather than simply raising energy and throwing it toward the person, the magician would formally invoke the divine authority recognized within the system called Bur by name and office, present his seal, and request or command that his healing virtue be directed toward the individual without causing additional harm or interfering with proper medical care. The magician might visualize the sick person surrounded by restored vitality while repeating the petition and allowing the candle, incense, seal, and spoken conjuration to concentrate the entire operation upon that single purpose. Once that request has been clearly delivered, Bur would be thanked or formally licensed to depart according to the magician's tradition. The ritual space would be closed and banished, and the seal or petition might remain on the altar for a predetermined period as the healing operation continues. So unlike the witch directly manipulating sympathetic links or the shamanic healer journeying to discover a spiritual cause, the ceremonial magician is essentially establishing an ordered ritual environment and deliberately calling upon a specific spiritual intelligence whose traditional office is believed to include the healing being requested. Meanwhile, the witch has already dressed the candle, raised the energy, and gone home for dinner. Neither one is necessarily better, they're simply different technologies of magic. And that, I think, is the important part of this entire comparison. Witchcraft, shamanic practice, and ceremonial magic sometimes get thrown together into one giant occult blender because all three involve things that exist outside ordinary religious practice, but their methods can come from completely different ways of understanding how spiritual power actually operates. The witch often works by manipulating relationships, correspondences, natural materials, and raised magical energy toward a desired result. The shamanic healer often works through direct interaction with a spiritual world, seeking information, assistance, or restoration through spirits in altered states of consciousness. The ceremonial magician often operates through an organized spiritual universe of correspondences, divine powers, symbols, and ritual authority. Same person, same healing request, three completely different maps for getting there. And there can obviously be overlap. A witch can communicate with spirits. A shamanic practitioner can use herbs. A ceremonial magician can perform something incredibly simple. These systems have influenced one another throughout history, and actual practitioners rarely fit perfectly inside tidy little boxes we create, explaining them. But understanding those general differences helps us understand something larger about magic itself. Magic isn't one technique. It's a collection of different ways human beings have developed for interacting with whatever we believe exists beyond the immediately physical world. One practitioner raises and directs power, another travels into the spirit world looking for answers, another carefully aligns themselves with an entire hierarchy of spiritual forces. Somehow, all three might stand beside the same sick person trying to accomplish exactly the same thing: healing. Different tools, different cosmologies, different methods, same destination. And maybe that's one of the more interesting things about studying the occult. Sometimes understanding how somebody performs magic tells us far more about their tradition than simply asking them what they believe.